Today's focus will be on the current methods that we use to find oil and natural gas. Because unlike in centuries past, where oil was actually found on the surface, we have long since used all of that oil that has been on the surface, and now we actually need to dig below the ground in order to get our oil and our natural gas. So, who do we turn to do this? Because digging is extremely expensive, so we don't want to just dig anywhere and hope for the best. What we want to do is we want to make educated guesses and try to dig where it's best or most likely to work. And so what we do is we turn to geologists, and geologists obviously understand the earth, and what they're going to do is they're going to apply a few different methods and techniques in order to identify the best place in order to find oil. And so what are they going to do? They're going to take core samples, which we'll talk about in a little bit. They also will look at the overall surface rock and terrain, because certain obviously terrain will be better to not only dig, but it will also be more likely to find oil beneath it. They will take larger picture images called satellite images. They will also use some gravity meters and magnetometers. Now, what's cool about these two things is that these sensors can actually measure the changes in Earth's gravitational field and magnetic field. And due to these changes, it is likely that oil will be found in these different areas. But the most common way that they actually use to find oil is they use a seismic technology. And seismic technology sends sound waves through the earth or through the water and below the water into the earth. And what they end up doing is they send these sound waves or seismic waves, and they bounce off of the various layers of the earth or of below the water's surface. And so what they'll do is they'll bounce back and they'll absorb in the various sensors. They'll take in the rate or the speed at which the sound waves traveled back to them. Okay, so they bounce it off. Okay, so they bounce these sound waves off. It bounces off the whatever surface or below the surface, and then it'll bounce back. Based off of the speed at which this sensor takes it in, it can then do a calculation to figure out the density at which the substance or the surface that it bounced off was, and from there geologists can figure out if it's oil or just a rock or whatnot. So with on the seabed, what they do is they end up sending these seismic waves or seismic waves, I guess shock waves. And what they do is they send them out, and these will bounce off the various levels. Now, based off the speed at which the sensors take it up, they will be able to once again figure out what the density of these various layers were, and from there they will be able to calculate the probability of it being oil versus just a regular old rock. From there, what they can then do is they can visualize how best would it be to dig. So we now know that there is oil in this particular area, but where would it be best to dig? What angles would we best use? Would we be able to actually dig in this area? And so what they'll do is they'll get into a 3D map, and they'll be able to figure this out so that once again, they are only digging when they are almost absolutely certain that they will be finding some oil. Another technique that they'll do right before they actually start digging is they'll take some core samplings. And what do core samples do? Basically what they do is they take a round cylindrical piece of the rock is removed, and from there they're going to analyze all of that rock, and they're going to look for all of its porosity and permeability, because remember these are the two keys in order to be able to find oil. And so they're going to find rocks that have these two characteristics, and then they're going to determine, okay, this is probably a very likely area that oil would be found. There are a few terms that you're going to need to know. The core is the actual machine that is used, the tube that is used to drill into the earth, and then the core hole is the actual hole made from that core sample. So here's some core samples right here on the upper right. So they've taken out the rock, and then what they'll do, the geologist will analyze the permeability and the porosity of these various samples to figure out if oil would be naturally found there, or if this is an actual area that they should be digging because it'd be easy to get to the oil. And here are your cores. So identify the type of exploration used by the image below. So the one on the left is your seismic technology. So once again, you're using shock waves bouncing off the Earth's surface and then or below the Earth's surface, and it's bouncing off to sensors, which then can read and determine the densities of the various substances below. And the other one is core sampling. So if you look at this one, you have your metal going into the rock. You will take out a part of that rock, take out the core, and then you will analyze it to make sure that there is either a probability of oil, you'll see the oil, or whether it would be easy enough to dig in that area or not. All right, so once we've figured out where we're going to dig, how do we go about digging? Well, you can't just automatically dig. So the first thing is that you need to find a suitable location to dig. So not every place is going to be, even if it has a bunch of oil beneath the surface, it's not going to be ideal to dig there. So you have to once again figure out how is it suitable, where is a suitable location to dig. And then you also have to figure out all the legal rights. Do you have the legal rights to dig there? Because if it's not your land, can you buy it even? So you have to figure out all that stuff too in order to get your oil. It's not like you can just find oil and dig wherever you want. You have to go through the legal system, which does take a lot of money and a lot of years to end up going through. So looking at this graph, what this graph does is it shows the current exploration wells and the refineries. So when you take out oil, that's where you explore. You'll take out the oil, and then what you'll do is you'll have to refine it, meaning you'll have to turn it into something usable. So you don't get it out and it's automatically gasoline off of the ground. So you're going to have to actually refine it to make it into the gasoline that we can then use in our cars. Okay, but an oil field is a region where an abundance of oil wells are actually found. So if you look at it, here's really big, here's some big ones. These are some very big areas of where you'll see a lot of oil being taken out of the ground. Okay, they are typically found in basins. What's good about a basin? Well, it's deep, right? So that's where oil can collect on the bottom. And then it's also rock that was formed by tectonic warping of previously flat land. So we formed all these layers on top of it, and so now we've got these little pockets of oil. So you'll notice that this is in a basin area, that's in a basin area, and these are all little basin areas. So looking at the map above, where are most of the oil fields located? Well, a lot of them are the wells are on the coast. Okay, but what else is, you can say, the basins. Okay, a lot of them are found in the basins, meaning the deep little areas where oil is naturally going to gravitate towards. And where are most of the refineries located? So let's focus on the refineries. The refineries are these triangles. So I don't see any digging here, but I see a lot of refineries there. I see a refinery there. That's actually when you're driving down 355 across the bridge, you'll see a refinery. That's an oil refinery. You'll see them over on the coast. You'll see them up here. I do see a lot by where the actual wells are. And so it makes sense why you would have the locations of where you're refining it or turning it into something usable right by the oil fields of which you dug. But it also would make sense why they would be here. Well, what's right here? These are major cities. So they're also right by major cities. So once they're done being refined, it's just a short little hop, skip, and a jump to where that energy will be used, which will be primarily in your big cities. So where are the most refineries located? Big cities or high populations, or by the wells themselves. Okay, hopefully you kind of understand about how we figure out oil now, and have a great day.